Hello book lovers, welcome to Uncommon Reader. I'm Daniela and this is my March Reads wrap-up. In March, I read a total of 8 books. 4 of them, though, are not translated in English. There were 2 Italian releases, 1 book from a German author called Brigitte Riebe. It was the 3rd book of a family saga set after the Second World War. The 4th book was from Shifra Horn. She's an Israeli writer, and she has a few titles of hers translated in English, but not this latest one called translating the Italian title, The Daughters of Jerusalem. And it's also a family story, mostly focused on female characters. So of the 4 books left, it'll actually come down to 3 because I've already spoken about my absolute favorite read of March, which was The Most Secret Memory of Man by Mohammed Mbougar Sarr. That was such an amazing read, and it's a serious candidate for Best Book of 2025. If you missed that video, I'll leave a link in the info box. So let's start talking about these 3 books that are left, starting with Banana Yoshimoto, The Premonition. This was a reread. I've read it in Italian, but I'm going to leave the cover of the English version. And Banana Yoshimoto is a writer I started to follow in the 90s, so I really bought every single book that she had published. She's quite popular in Italy, but at the time I was living in USA in 95. That's when we moved in USA. So every time I would travel back to Italy, I would purchase her books. And she was quite a prolific writer. Also, her books are pretty short. They go around 100, 150 pages, sometimes a little longer, but they're quite easy reads, although the subjects she writes about are very intimate and very psychological in a very simple language, though, so you can really connect with the characters. Another beautiful thing about Banana's writer is that I think from my perspective, I feel immediately drawn into the ambience she describes, into the atmosphere. So I've never visited Japan, but at the same time, I feel that special connection with the places because she describes them so well, and she describes so well her characters as well. Usually the protagonists of Banana Yoshimoto novels are young women coming of age, so we are sort of witnessing their struggle and their successes on, becoming, flourishing as a woman. And the protagonist of The Premonition is a 19-year-old girl who actually lives in a happy family. And she is very attached also to an aunt that lives nearby, which is very independent. She hasn't gotten married and is a figure that this woman, which a very difficult name, I'm going to find it, Yayoi, that's her name, and she has a really special bond with this aunt, and she doesn't really understand why. And there is something else that bothers Yayoi. She has very few memories of her childhood. She also has some paranormal sensitivities, and she's able to perceive mysterious presences around her, so she cannot explain. Yayoi will find her answers after she goes on an unexpected journey when her aunt disappears. So she decides to go after her, looking for her in places that they have spent together as a family before. And she's accompanied in this journey by her brother. And during this journey, she will find out some secrets that were hidden from her. I don't want to give out too many other details of the story because it is kind of an investigation of the soul, which is quite intriguing And with the way that the writer describes the characters, you immediately feel connected with them, and you feel their pain and in their anxiety of coming to a close and discover how she can find peace of mind. So I rated this book 4 stars on Goodreads. So moving on to the second book, called Pale Blue Ink in a Lady's Hand. And before I dive into the book, I want to tell you a bit about this author. That was my first encounter with Franz Werfel. He is a Czech-born poet, playwright, novelist, whose central themes were religious faith, heroism, and human brotherhood. So he was a very prolific writer, and his latest novel, The Song of Bernadette, which is not the book I read, it's sort of autobiographical because it starts when Werfel, a Jew escaping the Nazis, found solace in the pilgrimage town of Lourdes in France. The author did indeed escape the Nazis and went to France in the late 30s, and managed also to reach USA in 1940. Unfortunately, he passed only 5 years later at the age of 55. So this book is about a long suppressed love triangle between the male protagonist, who is Leonidas. He's a high-level Austrian career bureaucrat of humble origins, which is very important in the book, and his younger trophy wife, Amelie, and a Jewish woman, Vera, who he fell in love when he was way younger. Sometimes after the marriage, Amelie leaves for a few weeks because she goes to visit an aunt who is feeling sick, and Leonidas is sent for work into this university town where he meets Vera. He only had a crush, when he was younger, but this time they encounter, and she also has feelings for him. So at that time, Leonida and Vera become involved, and he makes promises of marriage, and totally hiding from her that he's already married. And when it's time to go back to his home, to his wife, he leaves her without notice. So despite being in love, or at least he thinks so, he cannot leave that comfortable, rich lifestyle that he has obtained by marrying Amelie. 18 years later, Leonidas and Amelie are having breakfast, and the meal is brought to them, and he recognizes a letter with this pale blue ink as Vera's handwriting. So he's kind of startled. He doesn't know what to do. So he hides the letter, and he promises himself to read it later. So with this letter, even without even reading it first, Leonidas' sense of guilt really comes crushing down, and he starts to theoretically going through a lot of different scenarios, even tries to justify himself in an imaginary courtroom, just like the Humbert in Lolita by Nabokov. So actually this book anticipated Nabokov Lolita. So I guess it was a great inspiration for that book. So what we see in this novel is a man that definitely avoids the truth and deceives himself and all around him, and finds all sort of motives to justify his actions earlier in life and at the present time. And we see how his position and the fact that it might be in danger makes him feel like he has to hide the truth and protect himself, as the position is probably more important than anything else. The book is also filled with tension because if there is one thing good about this character, is a certain language against the political situation that was was sort of growing around that time. There was an atmosphere of growing anti-Semitism. And in the book, it's pretty clear that was not well perceived by the character. And that's also why the novel was banned by the Nazis and also led the author to flee to France and then USA. So I enjoyed the psychological part of this book. Of course, you don't admire that kind of character, that kind of protagonist. It was also interesting to see the Austrian society in its final moments of tolerance before the Nazism spread throughout Austria as well. So I gave this book 3 stars on Goodreads. The last book I'm going to tell you about is The Roots of Heaven. I mentioned this book in a previous book tag. I'm not sure it was our own, mine and Renee of Beyond Books tag on Spring. Spring is in the air tag. If it is, I'm gonna anyway leave the link to the video there. And this book became a huge bestseller in France, winning the Goncourt Prize in 1956. And also here, it was an instant success in USA too. And I just learned they made a movie out of this book with the same name, The Roots of Heaven, with John Huston as a director. So Roman Gary, the author of the book, contributed to the screenplay. So the actors were Harold Flynn, pretty famous, and the French actress Juliette Gréco. But the main character, which is a Frenchman called Morel, was played by Trevor Howard. I don't recall this actor at all. But anyway, this novel is considered to be one of the first eco-friendly novels of the 20th century. The protagonist of this book is a Frenchman called Morel. He is a pragmatic man, but also is quite the idealist. He still has a great faith in humanity and in public opinion. He is a wanted man by African authorities because of his fights in defense of elephants that are sought after by many fraud hunters going after their fangs. Morel builds quite a following, so he forms this group, and with them they carry out sensational acts. And little by little, it becomes kind of a legend in Chad and throughout the French equatorial Africa. So while the authorities are trying to track him down, in the book, we listen to a few testimonies of people that have met him. Some are his detractors and some are his accomplices. But among Morel's group, there are a few people that are kind of trying to exploit his fame, and they have ulterior motives. They really don't care about the elephant lives. And some are in it because of political reasons. Some are in because they want to get rid of colonialists. They want to free Africa and become their own landlords. And they really don't care much about the elephants because for them, it's actually a source of sustenance, of food. So, it's not like they would kill 100 of them, but just enough so they can get their meat and eat and bring food to the table. So this book is definitely a really raw read. It's infused though by beautiful reflections and also showing all these contradictions between the plague of consumerism and this beautiful utopistic world that Morel envisions in protection of the environment. If you expect an adventurous book though, this is not the case because this book is quite philosophical and sometimes maybe a little verbose and repetitive in trying to really make us understand the philosophy of this man that, of course, makes us great supporters of his cause while reading the book. And last but not least, of course, the descriptions of the beautiful landscapes of the African continent, filled with natural beauty and magic for sure. So despite the beauty of the content of this book, I think because it was a bit verbose at times, and I did enjoy the writing, but just because of certain concepts were a bit repetitive, I gave it 3.5 stars. And this is it for this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more. Thank you. See you soon here on Come Reader. In the meantime, take care and happy reading. Ciao.